Welcome to another episode of the Executive Exclusive. I'm your County Executive, Julie Giordano, and again, here with me, as always, is your amazing Director of Administration, Bunky Luffman. So, Bunk, thanks for being here with me.
It's great to be back here, and I'm rocking the Wicomico County threads today.
I
And
know.
it's Casual Friday for us.
Yeah,
So.
you got the logo on
That's
and
right.
representing, definitely. Yeah, it has been a while since we have been in the studio doing a show, and there was a lot that's happened. December was a crazy month for me, and I think most people know it was all over Facebook and everything else, and I appreciate everybody's outpour. But of course, as many of you know, my husband suffered a massive heart attack on the 10th of December, went into cardiac arrest, and thankfully, by the grace of God, he is still with us. And special shout out to the Del Mar Fire Department and the Salisbury Fire Department. They were just monumental in saving his life. And more importantly, big shout out to Main Street Gym. That's where all of this happened. And within seconds, they were right there with him performing CPR. And without those measures, he wouldn't be here. So, needless to say, he's back to work. He's doing great. And again, thank you. So many of you reached out, and I just appreciate you. But he is doing very well, and we are moving forward. So, I had a little bit of an excuse, but not much. So, we had that going on, of course, and then the holidays. And then we got right into, as soon as we were back from the holidays, we were back in session. So there was a lot. There was a lot going on. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a recap for some things that happened, mostly in January. Like I said, December was kind of a whirlwind, and I was kind of dealing with some family stuff with my husband, and of course then the Christmas holiday. So what we're going to start with is the latest council meeting, and we'll kind of backtrack from that. But we have said that one of the things that we wanted to do, one of our resolutions, our New Year's resolutions, was to really emphasize that legislative session. A lot of times it just rolls through the county council meeting. Sometimes it's the quickest part of the council meeting. And what people don't realize is the amount of work that happened in that legislative session. So we're going to talk about a couple of big things that happened during that legislative session at the last council meeting. So the first thing, which is huge, is the property for the Humane Society. So Bunk, do you want to tell people a little bit about that situation?
Yeah, so this is a piece of property that 2 decades, 3 decades ago was used sort of as a boot camp for a few years, and then it's just sort of sat. All the buildings except one, which I think is a pump house, are gone. So it's a county property we don't use anymore. So we've worked on this for at least a year, between us, staff, and the Department of Law. And so it was great to take that to council where we're going to surplus the property. And basically, we're giving this to the Humane Society, which allows them to raise money to build a new facility. The facility they're at right now has really cramped quarters, especially for the veterinarians that need to come in and do some work. And so this would be a great facility. It's not going to spring up tomorrow. They still have a lot of money to raise, but this is a step in getting there. And then once they move over to that, then the county will assume ownership of the building they're in now. County already owns the land that building is on, but then basically we're trading them this land for that building. And then we'll do a feasibility study and see what we do with that. But yeah, it is incredibly important. So if you see the Humane Society, out there trying to raise money, it's definitely for a good cause and something that'll benefit our community for decades once we get this built. So.
Yes, and so I have to give the Humane Society a huge shout out because that's where I got my Bailey girl. So I ended up getting a pup from the Humane Society back in July, and she's amazing. She is such probably the addition to the family I didn't even know I needed. So I'm a big supporter of the Humane Society, and so we were really excited. And as Bunk said, this resolution took 10 seconds. It was a no-brainer for our council, but the amount of work that went behind it was a year, and us trying to figure out exactly what this looked like. And we were back and forth for a while because at first we were just going to sort of rent the land to them for $1, but we had to give it to them because they couldn't do a capital campaign without owning it. So there was a lot of back and forth, but we are so happy. There'll be a new location for the Humane Society, but right now it's just a vacant piece of property. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. And as Bunk said, if you can spare a few dollars, the Humane Society is such a great organization. So Anyway, all right. And then we also, anytime there's a grant that comes into the county, we do have to go in front of the county council to accept those funds because any funds and stuff, have to go through the county council. And the one that we accepted was the broadband grant. So that was about $1,100,000. And do you want to explain to people exactly what that grant was for and who it was from?
So first of all, our broadband expansion, and I believe this started under acting executive Soda. It may go back to Executive Culver, but this has been going on for years where we've really built out, a lot of times through grants through the state, our broadband. But where we have now are pockets where someone will have a really long lane, and that can be expensive, so the line could be at the road, but then if you want broadband, you're going to have to pay a few $1,000s to get it to your house. So this grant would pay for those companies, those ISPs to build it out. So it's sort of a pass-through grant. Secretary Jake Day, who you may have heard of before.
Yeah, I think we know who he is.
Sent us these monies. So basically, the county just then will divvy it up to the ISPs that are already building out broadband for these specific projects.
Right, yeah. So we are just sort of a filter. We are a pass-through with this. So we are taking the money, and then again, as Bunk said, we are divvying this up amongst the people who actually do this for a living. And so I think there was four. I think there was four people that applied for this. So that will be taken care of, and they will be sort of servicing their areas. I know they have a map of different areas that they specifically serve. So we were excited about that. And then LMB came up, and Stephanie was up there. She is our new LMB director. Not really necessarily new, but new. I haven't talked about her on here. Stephanie was our grant coordinator and then moved up to the director position. Unanimous vote. She has been great. She has really stepped up and has really just, really started to sort of carve LMB out to be kind of her own thing and really has a good vision for what she wants to do with it. But we accepted it was a grant for $211,500. And then something from the Maryland Department of Housing. I'm sorry. The $211,500 was from the Maryland Department of Housing. And then she also got a grant for connected devices of $3,000, which is huge. So what LMB does, it's a very much grant-based organization. So they are paid for by grants. All of their positions are grant funded, and they really seek to better the community. They look at community needs, whether it's hooking up or getting laptops out to people, maybe with some bill situations. She does a clothing drive. She does food boxes. There's so many different things that they do to help out the community, and so a lot. She relies on grants, and so she has just done an amazing job. So here we are with an extra almost $215,000 going into LMB, and that goes right out into our community. So that's great. And then there was one resolution. So all in all, positive council meeting. But there was one resolution that I want to talk about because I think there's some confusion with our community about our CIP. You're nodding your head, so you know exactly which resolution I'm talking about. So what the council has decided to do is extend the deadline for having to adopt the CIP, which is our capital improvement plan, to June 15th. Now, I don't even know really how to make this make sense. So let me explain once again to everybody, just in case you don't know what our CIP is. So the CIP is the very first beginning step of how we tailor the budget, right? So we have each of our individual departments meet with us, and they put forward into Munis, which is our system, our electronic system, all of their needs and wants when it comes to capital. And I know on this show we've talked about what is the difference between a capital need and what is the difference between operational. Capital are those things that are going to last a really long time, cost a lot of money. We're talking buildings, parking lots, roofs, like that kind of thing. So, and really parking lots would be even not just the paving of one, it would be like the design of one that's going to be around for a while. So there are specific things that make something a capital project. Saying that, we do that first. So that way our department heads can let us know what exactly they need. And then they plug in all of their operational stuff. So they do their capital stuff first, then their operational. But because they have their capital stuff, what we start doing is we start tailoring the budget and creating the budget using the CIP. What we'd like to have is a CIP adopted by the county council. And sometimes I feel like it's not that the CIP is not important, but it's just a plan. And what I said, and I'll let you comment on this in a second, is I used to be a teacher, so I'm going to make this very simple. This would be like a teacher saying, well, your final copy of a paper is due on June 15th, but I want you to turn in your rough draft on June 15th too. And as a student, you would say, well, I want to turn it in early so you can help guide me on what I can do. Nope, it's going to be at the same time. And so we really need the capital plan adopted, or else, I don't know. I mean, I guess we're going to go into the budget kind of blindly. We have an idea of what we want, but we actually kind of would like their input. So do you have anything to say about this?
So this is, again, an attempt where the executive's office trying to work with the council office or the council itself and saying, hey, this is what we think are the capital. What do you guys think? But we have to present the budget to them third Tuesday in April.
Right.
So if they don't adopt the CIP until after that, then potentially we might be focusing on the wrong things on the capital side on our budget. So we're going to spend, a lot of time, many staff hours, and all of that into this budget over the next few months. And it could be that we present it to the council and they totally dislike this or that in the CIP. So it is terribly inefficient for us not to get feedback from them. And I'll also say there's a council member who multiple times has said, what could help the issues between the executive office and council office is communication. And what I'd say to that council member, us presenting the CIP to you is communication. We need you to communicate back what you like so we can structure the budget appropriately. Like, communication is a two-way street.
Right.
So please see this CIP as us saying, hey, here's something. We're communicating with you. Mm-hmm. Now, please communicate back. Right. But if you wait until June 15th, then we're through the budget by then.
Yeah, it's too late.
By that time, not only have we presented them the budget, we've had meetings with department heads. They've had meetings with the department heads. We've probably already worked out salary, and whatever we're going to do there. So it just does not... I don't understand it. I don't understand the premise. I don't understand any of it. And when we were at Maryland Association of Counties, we went up to Annapolis Wednesday. I specifically talked to a person who's part of a commission form of government, so no county executive, commission form of government. And I said, hey, how do you guys, and they do CIP then budget. And I said, well, here's what our council has done. They're going to extend this. And the person said, and I have no idea what political affiliation this person is or anything. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I was like, I know, it doesn't make any sense to me either. So the council has their reasons for doing it. And what we will do is our level best to put together a budget and with the capital projects that we think are fiscally responsible capital projects and that are needed. But it would be better if the council would communicate back to us.
Well, and what's so interesting is that I feel like they act as if they adopt the CIP, that it's a locked-in document. It's not. It's just like that they're recognizing, them adopting this plan as saying, okay, we recognize the CIP, we're good with this, go ahead and move forward. But just because it's adopted on the CIP doesn't mean, one, we're going to put it in the budget. It might get to the point where we're like, oh, okay, well, we can't do that. Or they may strike it from the budget. So it's not like they're being locked into something with this CIP. And I think that they're putting, and I don't know why, because some of our council members have been on here for almost 20 years. Like, they're putting so much into this capital plan. And in all honesty, it's just a plan. But it is kind of nice to say, hey, look, you're on the right track. Check mark, go ahead and start working on the budget. It's really just a tool to help us form the budget. And without that tool, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult. So I still plan at the next council meeting to actually say something else about it, like, hey, we really need to get this adopted. So we'll see what happens. So, all right, jumping from us, so we talked about Wednesday, we were in Annapolis. On Monday, I was in DC for Inauguration Day. Exciting time. I know probably not everybody's happy. I'm happy. I'm pretty sure you're happy. So we're excited about that, and that's all we're going to say about that. But the inauguration was great, so I'm really excited about what that's going to look like.
Well, can I say something?
Yeah.
So just one thing, and I don't mean this from a partisan perspective at all. It's about the vice president. So J.D. Vance comes from incredibly humble beginnings. He's very open and vocal about that through his book Hillbilly Elegy. And I really think that people, no matter where they're at on the spectrum of partisanship, if they would drop that and just read his book or go back and do some research into his background, you can draw inspiration from his life in the way that in the 90s, a lot of people drew inspiration from Bill Clinton's life, who grew up single mother home. So, same with President Obama, single parent home. So I think J.D. Vance in this administration, because President Trump, bigger than life. His father's pretty wealthy. He's bigger than life. If you're growing up in Delmore, where I grew up, there's not a lot I relate to there. But I relate to J.D. Vance in a way that I don't think I've ever related to people in the White House before. Just because there's been drug addiction, friends, family. There's been domestic violence. In the community that I'm aware of, and there's just the brokenness that sort of he rose above is really inspirational, and I'm really glad that he's vice president, and I think that he can, him and Usha, his wife, could be a bridge for people that if they could just set aside some partisanship,
right,
that could really help move our country forward. So.
Yeah, my favorite part of that was, you see, when I was at the RNC, you saw Donald Trump and you saw his grandkids on his lap and that kind of thing, and you see that grandfatherly figure. But when J.D. Vance was being sworn in, you have his mom coming in, and I forget who else was with them. I don't know if it was like a caretaker nanny type thing, but they were bringing the kids in too. And the kids, like the one sucking her thumb, and she's got Band-Aids on her like fingers. She was adorable. And you could tell, we moms out there, as well as I do, that little girl probably needed one Band-Aid, but then wanted one on every finger. So, and they were just like, you know what, we're not even arguing. But I loved seeing that because you really see that family dynamic. And the kids are so young. And they're just such a young group. And I think it does. I think it really talks to, like you said, individuals that maybe, obviously can relate to him probably a lot more than they can to Donald Trump. But more importantly, that young generation too. I mean, he's 40. He's 40. I look at it, I'm like, I'm 43. And I'm like, look at this man's vice president, So he's just accomplished so much in his life. So it will be exciting to see his career and see what happens with him later on. So. But good stuff. And then one thing that I wanted to talk about is, you might have seen this on my Facebook page, is the goose issue. So I have sort of taken this, for lack of a better term, by the horns, because we obviously know there is a goose problem here in the county. And unfortunately, Bunk gets calls all the time, specifically from one person in general, but a lot of people, but there's nothing we can really do because geese are federally protected, right? So it makes it very difficult for us. And I understand they defecate on the sidewalks. It's dangerous. You can't go anywhere near their nest, which you shouldn't, because they are very protective and they will attack you. We've seen it happen on video, as a matter of fact. But the biggest problem now is that now they have contracted this avian flu. There are fields that I've been told about where these geese are like meandering through like zombies because they're so sick. Farmers are having to go through and pick up these dead geese, incinerate them because they're so sick from this avian flu, or they have the avian flu. And we have to be super careful. I mean, you want to be careful anyway, but we have a ton of poultry farmers right now who, it has not hit Wicomico County just yet, but it's been in Virginia and Dorchester County, and I want to say it was a little bit north, but it hasn't hit us yet, thank goodness. But I feel like it's coming, and we have to be super careful. If a poultry farmer, gets this avian flu with his flock, first of all, the flock is no good, and then they cannot have another flock in there for 6 months because of the disinfectant process that has to happen. There's this disinfecting thing that has to happen, and then they have to put, what do they call it in there? I said the turkeys, but it's, there was like a word for it.
It's sort of like a canary in a coal mine is sort of what it is.
Right, that's it. Yeah, I forget what the comparison was.
An indicator species kind of.
Yeah, like an indicator. Well, they have to see if they'll survive, and then if they survive, then it's good for the chickens. But not only is this affecting our poultry industry, our farmers, but it's hurting our local economy. So we really are hoping that Congressman Andy Harris is willing to meet with us. He is definitely the right person to meet with on this. It's affecting Congressional District 1, so I know how much he very much tries to protect Congressional District 1. So we're hoping to meet with him. And so stay tuned for that, but we are looking for some remedy with this.
Well, and so this goes back to my time at Department of Natural Resources. I also got calls and I just my office person Lisa was amazing. So me and her basically were in charge of all constituent issues as well as being legislative director. So 20,000 emails a year, that kind of thing. But we got a lot on geese, and there's very little DNR can even do because it's a federally protected migratory bird. There are several states that are in this flyway, which we're in on the Eastern Shore. There's a different flyway on part of Western Maryland, which makes it sort of confusing. So we're under federal regulations on this. So like a few years ago when the city of Salisbury wanted to get rid of some geese at the park because they had been attacking joggers and what have you, and they did. They had to go through Fish and Wildlife at the federal government to get all those permissions. So that's sort of that's why you have to go to federal government. It's nothing DNR really can. They can help, but with passing you through to federal. But so hopefully we get some sort of a positive movement, to help us here.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So, and then I just wanted to briefly touch on last weekend, I was able to attend the Pittsville Firemen Annual Banquet. And I just want to give a big shout out to Ricky Powell, their chief, Holly Ortel, and to David Carrozza for their awards that they won. There were multiple awards given out that night, but those three obviously exemplary. They do phenomenal work in our community, and so I wanted to give a big shout out to them and just thank them also for allowing me to be a part of it. And then this Saturday night, I have the Del Mar banquet, which Del Mar obviously is always going to have a special place in my heart. I know it has a special place in your heart because that's where you live, but they were the first ones on the scene and started, really doing the CPR situation with my husband. So I will be giving them a special award as well. So big shout out to our fire departments.
So I want to tell a Del Mar Fire Department story.
Okay, yeah.
For whatever reason, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I really liked Tab soda, which was a diet soda that little kids probably you wouldn't think would like. And so me and my dad went to the fire department for, I don't know, an open house or something they were doing there. And they had a drink machine, and I put in my 35 cents because I'm old, and I hit tab, and a adult beverage came out, and then what I found out later on, decades later, was that no one ever got tab. So I guess it was an insider thing that if you wanted an adult beverage that came in a can, you could just pay 35 cents.
Wow.
That no longer occurs, but in the late 70s, it absolutely did.
It's the way we did things in the 70s. I love it. I only know Tab from Back to the Future because I think Marty asks for one when he goes to the diner in the 50s and they didn't know what he was talking about. But I don't think I ever drank Tab, but that's even funnier. So anyway, and then just really quick, I know we had talked about Jake Day with the Department of Housing. They also were able to give $2 million towards the Performing Arts Center. As everybody knows, if not really quick, we will be moving our library out of downtown. We are going to the Ward Museum building. We received some funds in the governor's budget for that, so that's great. And then that will be our old library, or our current library, will be demolished, and then we will be SU will be building a performing arts center. So we're really excited about that, and Secretary Day was able to put $2 million towards that. So exciting time.
One piece, because this goes into something that's not our issue, but is talked about a lot with parking downtown. So once we move the library out of downtown, and we're going to move the health department folks that are in the Hurdle building, which is near the corner of Main and Division, to the health department, the building we bought for the health department, the old Verizon building. That's going to free up 121 spots in the parking garage. And that's not an insignificant number. So, and I get that that's going to be sort of a temporary thing, but I really think that us freeing that up, and my guess is in the next 18-ish months, we'll probably be able to do that. I think that's really going to help with sort of some of the parking pressure that might help if some of these projects start going now.
Who says we don't help the city?
That's
you
right.
See, we're moving everything out for them.
That's right. Now, once the Performing Arts Center, they're going to have to do a feasibility study on that. I don't know, but I do know in the next, I would guess 3 to 5 years, I think that those parking spots, will be available unless or until someone redevelops Hurdle or the Performing Arts Center kicks off. So.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're helping the city out and they don't even realize it.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah. Anyway, and then the last thing I wanted to touch on, because I know we're running short on time, is we had gone forward. It wasn't this past meeting, but it was the meeting before that, trying to get some legislation done that we had done some very significant legislation last year with our liquor dispensary, the liquor monopoly here in the county. We were able to open that door a little bit and we allowed our restaurants to be able to purchase from whatever distributor they wanted. It has been so wonderful. We have received nothing but positive feedback. And so we kind of wanted to continue down that path. And so there were a couple of pieces of legislation that we wanted to move forward. Unfortunately, there wasn't a consensus with the county council to do anything else at this point. And that's okay. And as I told them from the beginning, this is not going to turn into a Jerry Springer episode. Like, we are going to talk like adults. If we want to move forward with it, we will. And if we don't, we don't. And unfortunately, they didn't want to. It's not really what I wanted to hear, but it is what it is. We are still working a couple of different angles, and so we're going to continue working. But I did want to make one comment about one councilman who said, I think it was at the last meeting, and he said, I feel like there has been a lot of talk about liquor. Like, liquor keeps coming to us. And what I want to say to him, and what I actually plan to say at the next meeting, is liquor problems keep coming to you because we have an antiquated, broken system. And I know everyone says, oh, it's so wonderful because we get money from them and this, that, and the other. And while that part is good, there are a lot of other things that are not great with it. So I think for as positive, if you want to pull out the positives, I could name you just as many negatives with it. I am very much about the free market. It's not something I really agree with. I have made my voice very known about that. It was kind of funny though, because we wanted to create the free market, I think somebody referred to me as like a Russian dictator or something.
Yeah,
I'm like,
weird.
literally the opposite of that. So that would not be the free market. That's literally the opposite of that. However, again, these problems, I won't say problems. These things keep being brought up because we still have constituents that are not happy with this particular system. So that's why you keep hearing about it. When there's an issue and you fix it, it's amazing. You don't really hear anything else about it. So it's just a little frustrating to me to hear somebody say that. We just keep hearing about liquor. Well, you keep hearing about it because there's something broken in our system. There is something broken with this system. And, we're still going to try some different things to try to make it as efficient as possible if we will keep the dispensary system here in Wacomico County. But I do want to tell you all, we are the only county that does it this way. Even Montgomery County, even though they have a dispensary, it's very different. It's county run. There's oversight with it. It is completely different. We literally are the only county who does this. And maybe we're doing it right, but I have a strange feeling that I kind of trust the other 22 jurisdictions besides us. So any thoughts on that before we wrap
well,
up?
and I just do want to say, so if different members of council said that, what crossed my mind is, well, where's your bill? Like, what is your legislative priority to send to the state? Because James Wynn, Councilman Wynn had something on Sunday hunting, and I don't remember any legislative bill coming from the other members. So like, yes, we're bringing forth priorities from the executive's office, and they're not our only priorities. There's letters of support, letters of opposition you'll be writing all throughout the legislative session, but so they have constituents in our council or in our county too. So, I would challenge them to come to the table with their ideas so we can discuss them and maybe we can agree and put in a bill for something that might be a priority of theirs.
Right. And I think what's frustrating about that is that, they are my priorities because they're my constituents' priorities. I don't really, I don't shop at our liquor stores. Liquor is not really my choice of alcohol. Like, it's just not something that my husband and I, partake in. However, we do have people that are in that business and we do have people that, do partake in that. So, but when constituents come to me with an issue, you have to me, I would hope that you would say, I hope no elected official would ever say, well, that's not important to me, so I'm not taking it forward. That's not what your job is as an elected official. And I feel very safe in saying that. This does not affect me. I don't have a business. I don't, have a restaurant or a beer and wine store. Like, I don't have any of that. But these are constituents that have come to me that said, hey, look, this is hurting my livelihood, or this is, hurting our business here in the county, or we are a really unfriendly county when it comes to business because of these things. And it's like, okay, well, as the executive, I tried to remedy that and try to fix that. So I think that people need to understand that it's just not about campaign promises, even though we do want to keep them, obviously, and I feel like we've done that, but it's about making Wacomico County better. And that's my opinion. And not everybody has that opinion. But I also think that there are some things that are not going forward as more of a vendetta than actually what's best for the county. And so I really hope that that's not the case, and that, maybe from here on out that we can move forward in a more positive direction when it comes to that. But I will always bring constituent issues forward. Always. Always. And like you said, I hope that they do have legislative priorities. If they think that everything is just 100% great and whatever else, there's really no need to run for anything. You know what I mean? You run to make a difference, and you run, to make the county better. So we'll see what happens, but we have a busy time in Annapolis coming up. There's a lot of things that we have coming down the pike. Of course, obviously the governor's budget came out, but also a lot of other things are coming out too that we are not thrilled about. However, we are going to try our best to really work through them and figure out how we can make sure to take care of our people here. So anything else, Bunk? Do you want to add anything?
Oh, we have a busy 90 days, less than 90 days now
Yeah.
of the General Assembly ahead of us. So.
Yes. Oh, and big shout out. This is his first session, Delegate Barry Beecham. If you live in his district, he's basically Delmar to Fruitland. Please reach out to him. He is so responsive. He will be ready and willing to help you. So he's doing a great job. So we want to cheer him on.
Well, and he hired Shanna Minderline, who myself and her started as legislative aides the same year when I was Delegate Anderton, 2015, so I've known her a long time. It was a great hire on his part.
Yeah, so we know that she'll keep him straight.
That's right.
She'll keep him, ready to go and on top of things. So anyway, well, that is all the time we have for you today. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will check you next time on the next Executive Exclusive.